Hello and welcome to today's session. Today is going to be all about those pesky little preposition mistakes we end up making in our IELTS test that make us sound like not so native, not so fluent English speakers and can actually hurt our band score by a lot. Okay, so here we are with these preposition mistakes. My name is Asmita, your IELTS mentor here at Vedantu. And what is the preposition problem? Now, the entire issue with prepositions in general lies with the fact that their usage is idiomatic, not idiotic, idiomatic. What that means is there are no set of rules, no guiding principles really telling us which preposition to use when. It's all just convention. We've simply decided that, okay, with these adjectives, with these nouns, and with these verbs, we are going to use these prepositions. So these are just things you need to memorize. And for native English speakers, because they've been listening to sentences in English ever since they were babies, they know which preposition to use when, and even then they might go wrong sometimes. Some preposition mistakes here and there native speakers make all the time. But the thing is, the kind of mistakes that Indian English speakers make are very different from those that native English speakers make, and we know that in the IELTS test we can make the mistakes that natives do, but we cannot make the mistakes that Indians do. And for some reason all of this just sounds really racial and wrong to me, but that's not the intention. The point is, we need to be able to prove to the examiner that, hey, we can speak English better than your folks there, okay? And how we're going to do that? We're going to do that by figuring out what are those peculiar mistakes that we end up making a lot that show that English is not our first language, okay? So now, number one problem with prepositions, that their usage is idiomatic. So we need to simply memorize that, okay, this is when I need to use this preposition. Second thing, when it comes to the position word, we know prepositions that tell us about position. Those are very easy to understand. You know, up, down, in, out. All of these words, very easy to understand, but these are not the only prepositions, right? The function of preposition is a lot more than just telling us where a noun is. Prepositions tell us the relationship between different parts of speech in a sentence, between the noun and pronoun and other parts of speech in a sentence, right? So prepositions are important beyond just telling us what the position of something is, and that is what we're going to look at today. Now, this is not an all-out preposition lesson where we're going to start from the basics. We are focusing on historically the kind of preposition mistakes that have been made in the IELTS test, and we're just going to fix those because you are preparing for a specialized test. You don't want a full-blown grammar lecture right now. So we will specifically focus on the kind of mistakes that are made with IELTS in mind, okay? So number one, knowing which preposition to use with certain adjectives and certain nouns. Now, as you can see, these nouns and these adjectives will be commonly used in the IELTS. When it comes to your writing task, where you're talking about a graph or a table or a chart, you will use these words to talk about the different trends that you see. You can use these words in your speaking test. You can also use them in your other essay. Same thing with these adjectives. Whenever you're speaking, you're going to use them. Whenever you're writing, you're going to use them. And when we use them, we need to make sure we're using them correctly. So you need to tell me, which preposition do we use with these three adjectives: bad, good, and surprised? Let me give you a sentence. Try to fill in the blank and see if you get it right or wrong, okay? Okay, we're talking about two subjects. What preposition will we use here? Now, a lot of you might have said, which is a common mistake that Indian English speakers make. We end up saying that we're good in something or we are bad in something. But the thing is, we do not use the preposition in with good, bad, or even surprised. We use the preposition at, okay? So, oops, 1 second. So what you want to say here is, I'm bad at math, but I'm good at English, okay? And this could apply to anything. I'm good at a certain sport. I'm good at doing a certain task, okay? It's always going to be at. Bad at, good at. Similarly, surprised at. How do we make a sentence with this? Let's say, I was surprised at the number of people who showed up for the party. All right. So I was surprised at. So we have our answer here. Always use at with these adjectives. Okay. Now let's move on to the next three that you see, which is angry, pleased, and disappointed. Now with angry and pleased, there are two particular prepositions that we can use depending upon what we're referring to. Angry with or angry about. Okay, so with and about. What is the difference? With we can use for people, about for something. All right, for example, he was not pleased blank the changes that were made. All right, so he was not pleased blank the changes that were made. Are we talking about a person or are we talking about something? We are talking about the changes that were made. This comes in the something category. So what are we going to use? We're going to use about. He was not pleased about the changes that were made. He was angry about the changes that were made. But now if we change this to a person, what can we say? He was not pleased blank the chancellor for making the changes. So now we have shifted focus to a person instead of something. So what are we going to use? We are going to use with. He was not pleased with the chancellor for making the changes. We can also say he was angry with the chancellor for making the changes. So when it comes to angry and pleased, if you're talking about a person or people, you're going to use with. If you're talking about something in general, you're going to use about. So we have two options over here, with and about. All right, now coming to disappointed. Again, we can use with or about with disappointed as well. Okay, so I'm going to give you a question and you just need to tell me which one we're going to use by applying whatever logic you have just learned. Okay. And number two. All right, so quickly tell me which one you're going to use where. All right. Great. So he was disappointed with his son. Raghu was disappointed about the election results. You can also say with the election results. He was disappointed with the election results. That's why I haven't added this here. I haven't made the bracket longer because when it comes to disappointed, you can use either about or with. It really doesn't matter. Okay, but you cannot say he was disappointed about his son unless you're talking about he was disappointed about his son not getting into the soccer team or whatever. Okay, so it depends on the certain circumstance, but you're always disappointed with, you're angry with, you're pleased with a person. Just your general rule to remember. And you can also say he was disappointed with the election results. Doesn't really matter. About and with both work over here. Okay, so now that you know this, I'm going to extend the bracket. All right, so that's for our adjectives, but one more comes to mind that I would like you to know about. What do we use with worried? What do we use with worried? Oh, 1 second. Or now here we have two different kinds of sentences. One has a person and one has a thing. Okay, so Sheila is worried blank her mother. Sheila was worried blank her mom's health. In one case, we are talking about a person directly. In another case, we're talking about their health, which is a thing. So what will you do here? Will you use with in any of these examples? The answer is no, you will not use with. Sheila was worried about her mother. She was worried about her mother's health. So when it comes to disappointed, you can use with or about, but we will use with a person or people. But when it comes to worried, we always use about. You're always worried about something or someone. So if we can just write that down so that we remember, when it comes to worried, it is always about. Okay, so just general rules for you to remember over here, all right? Now, coming to the noun part of it, we've figured out which preposition to use with adjectives. Now, we need to figure out which prepositions to use with these nouns. Decrease, drop, fall, increase, rise. All the way till here, we're going to use in. Okay, there's been a decrease in something, a drop in something, fall, increase in, rise in. Any of these words that are synonyms, we will always use in along with them, okay? And when it comes to advantage, example, percentage, we will use of. So, the advantages of the internet greatly outweigh its problems or disadvantages, okay? So advantages of, or you can say the percentage of women in the STEM field is increasing. The number of, we also use of with number. An example of this is, all right, so when it comes to words like advantage, example, percentage, number, we always use of. And when it comes to trends, decreasing, increasing, okay, it's always in. All right, another thing I want you to know is when you have two things and you're doing a comparison, we will always use the preposition between. All right, two things, two nouns, and you're comparing something like an attribute of theirs. If there's a comparison of any sort, we are going to use between. All right, so this is all you need to know about these prepositions. And what we're going to do now is you're going to try answering these questions. Please pause and answer the questions, and then I'll give you the answer based on the rules that we have just understood. All right, and here's fifth one. Okay, here we go. I've never been very good at painting or drawing. The US's population is far greater, so there is a big difference. Okay, we have two totals here. We're comparing two totals, so difference between the two totals. The most dramatic increase, again increase in numbers, occurred in 1997. The number of children, advantage of, example of, number of. Children with obesity problems is growing each year. I was surprised at how calm I felt before the performance. All right, very easy, but We did not know it was this easy because we simply didn't know which preposition is used. Now that we know, we can remember that and not make a mistake ever again. Now moving on to prepositions with verbs. We saw adjectives, we saw nouns. Now we're taking a look at different verbs. Agree, apologize, look. Now we can use two different prepositions with the three of these based on what we are trying to say. Okay. Now with, I think one thing we can remember as a general rule, even though I told you there are no general rules, there are some general rules. Yay, lucky for us. One thing we can remember as a general rule is that with is generally used with people, a person or people. Okay, so you can agree with someone and you can agree to something. All right, for example, they agreed with me when I told them how I felt. All right, so agreed with, because me is a person. Now let's change the sentence. The two countries, let's say the two countries agreed to a ceasefire. Okay, so here agreed to, because they agreed to something. A ceasefire is something and not someone. Easy rule to remember: agree with someone, agree to something. All right, they've agreed to stop fighting. They've agreed to their demands. All right, they agree with each other. Next, apologize to. Here, when you apologize to, you are doing it to someone. When you apologize for, you're doing it for something. Okay, for example, he apologized to me for his behavior, or Dylan apologized to Sylvia for yelling at her. All right, and apologize for, again, he apologized for yelling at her. Apologize to Sylvia. Okay, so one sentence gives you an example of both. Dylan apologized to Sylvia for yelling at her. Okay, one example for both these things: apologize to, because Sylvia is a person, and for, because yelling at someone is something that you do, not a person. All right. Okay, next, look at and look for. Same thing, but a little different here. We're not talking about a person. Look at means looking specifically in the direction of, like, look at that bird, look at that plane, look at that car. What are you looking at? Okay, so looking at specifically in the direction of something, and looking for something you can't or want to find. I am looking for a black pair of jeans, or I'm looking for my lost notebook. Okay, what are they looking for in the park? So looking at, you are intentionally staring at something with a purpose. Okay, looking for something you may not find or something that you want, and you're actively seeking it. Okay, so easy here, looking for versus looking at. Okay, then we have these set of verbs: find out, know, learn, teach, and think. Okay, now here what if you try and make sentences with these? It's so hard not to give away the answer every time I'm trying to ask a question. Okay, so if you try and make a sentence with each of these, I'll give you a second, or you can pause and do this. Find out which preposition do you end up using a lot after these things, after these particular verbs. Quickly try to make a sentence. You just got the news that two people are engaged, so you found out blank their engagement, or you already knew that they were dating and you already knew that they were going to get engaged. So you will say, I already know blank that. Okay, you're trying to get some new knowledge about, see, it ended up happening. Okay, so what is the preposition that you will use with these? Very hard not to give it away. They found out about the secret scandal. I already knew about it. I learned about it in high school. They taught us about the uses of, I don't know, a spectrometer. And that's a lot to think about. Regardless of the kind of sentence you're trying to form, you will find that generally after each of these verbs, you end up using the preposition about. Find out about, know about, learn about, teach about, and think about. Okay? So now, based on everything that we've understood, let's try answering these questions. Again, because using a certain preposition with these verbs changes the meaning of the sentence, you need to focus on the context over here in order to understand which preposition to use. Okay? I don't know very much. So, know about. Now, don't get distracted with this information in the middle. Okay? Try to look for the verb and figure out which preposition to use after it. Don't say, oh, I don't know which preposition to use after very much. Doesn't matter, you know which preposition to use after no, right? Very much is just extra information. I don't know about ancient history. I don't know too much about ancient history. Okay? I know very little about ancient history. You can add anything over here, but the point is, even if you remove this, you can still make a sentence. I don't know about ancient history. So the preposition that you need to put here has to be according to the verb know. All right. The manager agreed blank an increase in staff holidays. So this is something, not a person. So agreed to an increase. I agree blank the teacher. You really need to improve your handwriting. Is this meant for me? Okay. I agree with the teacher. All right. Because the teacher is a person. Even if it's not a person and it's a robot, you'll still treat it like a person. Okay. Next, what are you looking blank? The response, my glasses. I can't find them anywhere. So now you're not staring at something with a particular intention. You're trying to find something. So what are you looking for? The airline apologized blank losing my luggage. Okay. They apologized. Is this a person? No. So for. The airline apologized to me for losing my luggage. Okay. So for apologize, you can sort of remember it this way, that you always apologize for doing something bad or wrong. Okay. So the reason will be preceded. So you will always, for will also come before the reason and to will always come before the person. Easy way to remember. Okay. All right. Now, next set of rules are prepositions of time and place. Oh no. Now, the thing with the prepositions of time and place is you have only three. And the three of them are very easy. Okay, you have in, on, at. Okay, we can use in, on, at as prepositions of time. We can use in, on, at as prepositions of place. Just their usage will change. I mean, there are rules, thankfully, over here that will tell you when to use which, okay? So, as prepositions of time, we use in to talk about anything that has a duration, Okay, for example, a month has a duration, right? A year has a duration. Let's use a different color actually. Okay, month has a duration, year has a duration, a century has a duration. Okay, for example, in April, my birthday is in April, I was born in 1996. All right, we live in the 21st century. So anything with a duration requires in. All right, so I'm just gonna write duration over here. Okay, now on is a date or day. On Monday, on 26th January. Okay, next we have at, which is at, just remember it's going to be for a very specific thing. So here, what is the most specific thing? If you start with in, okay, there's a month. More specific than month, you have a date. More specific than a date, you can have a time. Okay, so at 12 o'clock, at lunch, if you're using the word lunch as a time, so if you're trying to use it to give somebody a scheduled time, then you will use at along with it. Okay, so any kind of time that you're specifying, at lunch, at midnight, what's happening? Okay, at midnight, at noon. Okay, so you will use, at with all of these times. Now, there is one slight difference here, that whenever we talk about afternoon or morning, we treat it like a duration, which means we will use in with it. Okay, in the mornings, I like to spend some time reading, okay, or I get very lazy in the afternoon. But when it comes to night specifically, we use at. For some reason, we use or we treat night like a specific time and not a duration. For some reason, that's an exception, okay, that you can remember. So we always use at night instead of in the night. Okay, so those are the basics of prepositions of time. Now let's look at prepositions of place. We use in as a preposition of place for anything that is enclosed. What does that mean? Anything that has a defined boundary. Can you think of things that have defined boundaries? Like a country, it could be a drawer, it could be a room, all right? So it could be a continent, anything with a defined boundary, all right? In the palm of your hand, if I say in the palm of my hand, that's also a defined boundary, okay? In the closet, in India, in Africa, in Asia, okay? You can get as broad as you want, you can get as specific as you want. As long as it has a boundary, a defined boundary, you will use in with it, okay? Then on is always used for a surface, okay? It's on the bed, it's on the road, it's on paper. Something could be on paper, on the table, anything that's on top of a surface, okay? And at, again, very specific address. You can say something like he lives at 10 Downing Street, okay? I live at the intersection of Oak Street and Elm Street, okay? So very specific address. Or you can even use at to talk about a spot. Okay, let's meet at the park, because that's a spot where you generally meet your friends. We meet at the park. Or if you're giving them a very specific place where you want to meet beforehand, okay, just like you gave a specific time, let's meet at the library at lunch, okay? Just like you gave a specific time frame, which is lunch, you're giving a specific place where you want to meet, which is at the library. So anything, do you think of the word specific? where the other person is going to understand exactly where they need to be, then you use the word at. Okay, so these are the basics of prepositions of time and place. I hope you understand the distinction between time and place. That's quite self-explanatory, but everything else, this is all you essentially need to remember logically. Now we'll try answering some questions and that will give you a clearer picture. Okay, so you can pause, answer questions. I'll also show you what's ahead. And I'm going to give you the answer. So I started high school, 2015, duration in 2015. Shall we meet, and what is this? Preposition of time. This is time, okay? Shall we meet blank the library and then go in together? Very specific place that you're asking somebody to meet you. So at the library. I was born June 17th, 1991 is a date on. That actor was much younger, blank the movie we saw last night. Okay, so we'll use the word in the movie. Okay, the movie is also something you're watching for a defined period of time. So by that logic, it's always in the movie. Okay, I find that I do my best work at night because for some reason night is treated as an exception. I think the story here would probably be something like we are awake in the morning, we are awake in the afternoon, so we actually are able to comprehend those time frames as durations, whereas we are asleep at night. So that's just, we lose consciousness, we're asleep. So that's just one specific time that goes by quickly. Maybe that's why we use at night and not in the night. If you are awake, I'm usually awake throughout the night or in the night. Maybe in that specific context you can use in, but generally we will use at with night. Okay, now the next thing, the curious case of for versus since. I've seen many, even experienced English teachers make this mistake, but it's a very simple rule. It's so easy. I think the reason why we make this mistake is just because we're so used to making it. Sometimes the wrong thing starts sounding correct just because of our habits. So here, for, when do you use for, when do you use since? Let me start with an example, try answering it and then figure out what the correct thing should be. I've been Alright. I've been living here blank a very long time. What will you use here, for or since? The answer should be I've been living here for a very long time. But a lot of us have the habit of saying I've been living here since a very long time. I've been teaching since a very long time. I've been teaching since 5 years, all right? So all of these things are so common that it doesn't strike us as incorrect. But the thing is, the rule states that we use for when we are talking about a duration, okay? For a long time, for 50 years, for a second, could be any duration, but we always use for with it. And since is used for a specific point in time. Since Tuesday, since childhood, since 1987, all right? So whenever you're mentioning a specific point, you're going to use since. Whenever you're mentioning a duration, you're going to use for. If you ever get confused, just think of it, visualize it like a timeline. Okay, so when you have a Why did that happen? Okay, when you have a timeline and you are talking about something that you have been doing for or since, and you don't know which one to use, think about it this way. Am I talking about a specific point? I've been doing this since this particular point, or am I trying to establish how long I've been doing something for? Am I trying to establish how long I've been doing something for, or am I taking them back to the point where it all started? If I'm taking them back to the point where it all started, I will use since. If I want to emphasize how long I've been doing it for, then I will use for. All right, so that's the basic difference between since and for, which is why you will see restaurants where a lot of times they'll have a board saying, you know, since 1947. Okay, so, because they're talking about a specific time where they started, where this whole thing started. Okay, so that's your for and since. Now we're going to look at some common phrases that we use with the preposition of. Okay, so and this is the last thing that we're going to be looking at. So all you have to do here is just remember this, and you can put it mentally, you can put it in the bucket of sorry. And the problem is that generally people use for instead of of here. That's the mistake that is commonly made. So just keep in mind that if you have been using for instead of in any of these phrases, now you know these are common phrases with of. So you have to use of and not for. All right. Cost of living, standard of living, cost of living, standard of living, quality of life, letter of complaint, letter of complaint, letter of apology, not letter for apology or for complaint. Period of time. Okay, here the government of, the leader of, importance of, lack of, type of, in front of, instead of, because of. Whenever you want to give a reason for something, because of this, as a result of this. Okay, here generally the problem is not that you replace of with for, but that you don't put of only. So make sure that you are adding that of, and in the others make sure it's of and not for. Okay, so let's spot the errors. This is the last exercise we're going to do. Let's spot the errors. It is difficult for very old people to have a good quality for life. Very straightforward error. It has to be good quality of life. There are a large number different types of cars on our roadway. There are a large number of different kinds of cars. The leader for the opposition was very angry with the election result. The leader of the opposition. We ate at home instead to go to a restaurant because we couldn't decide what type of food we wanted. We ate at home instead of, and now we have more to correct, going. So after instead of, we use the ing form, not the infinitive form. So ate at home instead of going to a restaurant, not instead of to go. Okay. And finally, I missed out on a good job promotion as a result my illness, as a result of my illness. All right. So those are the corrections. Quite easy, I would say. Okay. And if we stop making these very common mistakes, I'm telling you, score is going to go up by a lot, because we don't even realize how much these small mistakes hurt the way we sound. We might have very good grammatical concepts in our head. We might know everything. We might be able to recognize the different parts of speech correctly, but all of that doesn't matter if it's not translating into fluent speech. We need all of that to translate into fluent speech, and for that we need to get rid of some old habits, because old habits die hard. We'll have to try a little harder, but it's doable, it's easy. That's why I'm giving you this in chunks, so that it's not a lot of information overload, not too much to remember at a given time. You can easily rectify these mistakes and then move on to the next thing. Okay. Also, do not forget to fill out this form. You will get expert guidance end-to-end guidance on everything that you need to do in order to make your study abroad dream come true. So make sure you fill out this form that's in the description. And please do not forget to like the video if it's helping you, share it with your friends. Do give me feedback in the comment whether or not these are helpful, and I will come up with more such content for you. Also, please remember to subscribe to the channel and follow us on Telegram. Also, don't forget to take care of yourselves. Don't stress, don't fret. Everything's going to be fine. I will see you next time. Bye-bye.